The sun cast its golden rays upon the picturesque wedding venue, bathing the lush gardens and elegant decor in a warm, ethereal glow. Emma, the beautiful and kind-hearted bride, stood before the mirror, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she prepared for the most unforgettable day of her life. Emma's mother, Karen, fussed over the delicate lace trim on Emma's wedding gown, her hands trembling with happiness. "You look stunning, sweetie." As Emma slipped into her gown, her best friend, Olivia, entered the room, a bright smile plastered on her face. "Wow, Em, you look breathtaking," Olivia exclaimed, her eyes locking onto Emma's with an intensity that made Emma's heart swell with gratitude. Since childhood, Olivia had been Emma's rock, her confidant and partner in crime. They had shared countless secrets, laughter, and tears. Emma trusted Olivia with her life, and she knew that her best friend would always be there to support her. As the two friends hugged, Emma couldn't help but notice the faintest glimmer of sadness in Olivia's eyes. She brushed it off as mere sentimentality, attributing it to the emotional toll of being a bridesmaid. The ceremony began, with Emma walking down the aisle to meet Jack, her heart overflowing with love and happiness. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers, and the warm sunshine cast a magical glow over the proceedings. As Emma and Jack exchanged their vows, Olivia stood by, a fixed smile on her face, her eyes gleaming with an unsettling intensity. As the night wore on, Emma and Jack's happiness was palpable, their love radiating like a beacon. But amidst the joy and celebration, a subtle undercurrent of tension simmered, waiting to erupt. The stage was set for a tragedy that would shatter the lives of everyone involved. Olivia's smile began to falter as the wedding celebration continued, her eyes clouding with a mixture of emotions. The camera panned out, and the scene dissolved into a flashback, revealing the hidden truth behind Olivia's seemingly supportive demeanor. The flashbacks took us back to Emma and Olivia's college days, where they had been inseparable. Emma's natural charm, beauty, and charisma had always drawn people to her, leaving Olivia in her shadow. Emma's success and happiness only intensified as they grew older, while Olivia struggled to find her footing. The flashbacks exposed Olivia's growing jealousy, her feelings of inadequacy and resentment simmering just below the surface. She began to obsess over Emma's fiancé Jack, fantasizing about a life with him. Olivia's behavior became increasingly erratic, her mood swings and outbursts causing concern among their friends. As the flashbacks returned to the present, Olivia's eyes locked onto Emma and Jack, her gaze burning with an intense, almost feral energy. The camera zoomed in on her face, capturing the turmoil brewing beneath her surface. The wedding reception continued, with Emma and Jack taking to the dance floor for their first dance as husband and wife. Olivia watched, her smile plastered on her face, but her eyes telling a different story. As the night wore on, Olivia's behavior became more and more erratic. She stumbled over her words, spilled drinks, and laughed nervously, her eyes darting around the room with a growing sense of desperation. Emma, oblivious to the storm brewing within her best friend, continued to bask in the joy and happiness of her special day. Jack, too, remained unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows, his focus solely on his beautiful bride. As the clock struck midnight, the reception began to wind down, and the guests started to bid their farewells. Olivia, her eyes blazing with a fierce intensity, approached Emma, a seemingly innocent smile spreading across her face. The stage was set for a tragedy that would shatter the lives of everyone involved. The hidden truth behind Olivia's obsession was about to be revealed, and the consequences would be devastating. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the wedding reception. Emma and Jack had exchanged their vows, promising to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. The air was filled with laughter and music, as the guests celebrated the union of the happy couple. Olivia, Emma's best friend and maid of honor, stood at the edge of the dance floor, a glass of champagne clutched in her hand. Her eyes seemed to gleam with a mixture of happiness and sadness, as she watched Emma and Jack sway to the music. As the night wore on, Olivia's behavior became increasingly erratic. She laughed a little too loudly and drank a little too much, and her eyes seemed to flash with a growing intensity. Emma, oblivious to the storm brewing within her best friend, continued to bask in the joy and happiness of her special day. The music changed, and Emma and Jack took to the dance floor for their first dance as husband and wife. Olivia watched, her eyes burning with a fierce intensity, as the happy couple swayed to the music. As the song came to an end, Emma and Jack shared a tender kiss, as the guests erupted into applause. Olivia's smile faltered, and for a moment, her mask slipped, revealing a glimmer of the jealousy and rage that had been simmering beneath the surface. The rest of the evening passed in a blur, as the guests danced and celebrated into the night. Emma and Jack made their way to their honeymoon suite, exhausted but happy, as the sun began to rise over the horizon. Olivia, her eyes blazing with a fierce intensity, followed them to the suite, her heart pounding with a mixture of emotions. She watched, her eyes fixed on Emma, as the happy couple disappeared into their room. Jack's mind went blank, as he crumpled to the floor beside Emma's body. He held her hand, his eyes streaming with tears, as he whispered her name over and over. The police arrived, and Olivia's jealousy and rage away from Emma's body, and she committed a heinous crime. Her face. She murdered Emma on her wedding night by hitting her head on the hotel wall, in a fit of jealous rage and motives scrutinized. Detectives questioned the guests, gathering statements and piecing together the events of the fateful night. Olivia's story began to unravel, as inconsistencies and contradictions emerged. As the truth began to unravel, Olivia's facade crumbled. She had maintained a calm and collected demeanor, but the strain was beginning to show. Her eyes darted nervously, as she fidgeted in her seat. The detectives sensed her unease, their questions becoming more probing and intense. Olivia's alibi for the time of the murder began to fall apart, as witnesses came forward to contradict her story. The police discovered a torn piece of fabric near the crime scene, which matched the material of Olivia's dress. The evidence was mounting, and Olivia's guilt was becoming increasingly apparent. As the investigation continued, Jack's grief only deepened. He was consumed by anger, sadness, and a sense of betrayal. He couldn't understand why Olivia, Emma's best friend, could commit such a heinous crime. The pain and hurt were overwhelming, and Jack struggled to come to terms with the loss of his beloved Emma. The police finally gathered enough evidence to arrest Olivia for Emma's murder. As she was led away in handcuffs, her eyes locked onto Jack's, a mixture of guilt, shame, and defiance burning within them. The trial would be a sensationalized media event, with the nation watching as Olivia's fate was decided. But for Jack, the outcome was already clear: justice would be served, but it would never bring Emma back. The days that followed were a blur of police interrogations, court appearances, and endless media scrutiny. Olivia's arrest and trial for Emma's murder captivated the nation, with everyone eager to know what had driven the seemingly innocent maid of honor to commit such a heinous crime. As the trial began, Jack took the stand, his eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep and grief. He recounted the events of the fateful night, his voice cracking as he described finding Emma's lifeless body. The courtroom was silent, mesmerized by Jack's emotional testimony. The prosecution presented its case, revealing the mounting evidence against Olivia. The torn fabric, the inconsistencies in her alibi, and the testimony of witnesses who had seen her arguing with him all contributed to a damning picture of guilt. The jury deliberated for hours, their faces somber as they weighed the evidence. Finally, they returned a verdict: Olivia was guilty of Emma's murder. The courtroom erupted into chaos, with Olivia's family and friends sobbing uncontrollably. Jack, however, felt a sense of numbness, his grief and anger still ran overwhelming. The sentencing hearing was a formality, with Olivia receiving a life sentence without parole. As she was led away in handcuffs, her eyes locked onto Jack's, a mixture of defiance and desperation burning within them. The devastating impact of the trial was felt by all parties involved. Jack's life was forever changed, his happiness and joy ripped away in an instant. Olivia's family and friends were left to pick up the pieces, struggling to come to terms with the monster that had been hiding in plain sight. As the dust settled, Jack realized that he had a long and difficult road ahead of him. He would have to learn to navigate a world without Emma, to find a way to heal and move forward. But for now, he was trapped in a sea of grief, unable to escape the pain and sadness that had consumed him. As the dust settled on the tragic events that had unfolded, a valuable lesson emerged from the ashes. It was a lesson about the destructive power of jealousy, obsession, and the unchecked emotions that can consume us. Emma's brutal murder served as a stark reminder that the consequences of our actions can be devastating. Olivia's downward spiral from jealousy to obsession to murder was a cautionary tale about the dangers of allowing our emotions to control us. As Jack struggled to come to terms with the loss of his beloved Emma, he realized that he had taken their relationship for granted. He had assumed that their love would last forever, that they would grow old together. But life had other plans, and now Jack was left to pick up the pieces. The lesson that Jack learned was one of gratitude and appreciation. He realized that every moment with loved ones is precious, and that we should never take our relationships for granted. He vowed to honor Emma's memory by living each day to the fullest, by cherishing the time he had with those he loved. As for Olivia, her tragic descent into madness served as a reminder that we all have the capacity for good and evil. We all have the power to choose how we react to the challenges and setbacks that life throws our way. Olivia's choices had led her down a path of destruction, but it was never too late for others to learn from her mistakes. The story of Emma, Jack, and Olivia served as a poignant reminder that life is short and that every moment counts. It was a lesson about the importance of living in the present, cherishing the time we have with loved ones, and of being mindful of the choices we make.